Hello everyone, in this video we're going to talk about Cells Lecture 3, Homeostasis and Cells. The first thing that we want to talk about is what is homeostasis? For a cell, we understand that it's an internal environment that the cell needs to keep inside of the cell, right? Compared to the outside of the cell. So one thing that we can consider is how much water is in the cell, or how much salt is in the cell, how much sugar is in the cell, how much hydrogen ions are in the cell. So that's something that your cell can keep, that environment that the cell can keep by using the different types of passive and active transports. However, you can also talk about homeostasis of an entire organism, whether it's a prokaryotic organism, unicellular organism, or a multicellular organism such as human beings. So in this picture, as you can see, there's a human being with a beating heart and all those other parts of the body. There's the lung, the liver, the kidney, the muscle, the brain. All those parts help maintaining homeostasis. So what is homeostasis? It's the maintenance of relatively stable, pay attention to the word relatively, right? Relatively stable internal physical and chemical conditions compared to the outside world, okay? So if you think about your body, obviously your body, inside the body is very different from what the outside world is like. You have a lot of oxygen in your body. While you're breathing in, the lung helps you bring all that oxygen in so that you can keep a certain oxygen level inside your body. You're also breathing out a lot of carbon dioxide, and the reason for that is because you want to maintain a certain level of carbon dioxide in your body, which needs to be pretty low, right? You can also think about how your liver helps maintaining, let's say an adult will drink alcohol and that alcohol needs to be digested. The liver helps digesting all those toxic material. Your kidney helps maintaining the water level, right? During the day you drink water, and that helps maintaining the environment in your body, but you also need to use the kidney to kind of filter out some waste and some water that your body no longer needs, and then use the bathroom to get rid of it, okay? So all those different parts of your body help maintaining homeostasis, the internal environment that needs to be relatively stable. So for unicellular organisms and multicellular organisms, we have different mechanisms on maintaining homeostasis. For unicellular organisms, there are some basic tasks that they do, right? They all grow. Even one cell can grow, right? They can respond to changes in their environment. So for example, if there's too much water outside in the environment and the cell has too much water on the inside, the cell can form a vacuole and get rid of that water. It's kind of like it forms a water bubble inside the cell and then push it out, okay? So that's one way that the cell can respond to the changes. The cell can also run away from other things, right? So for example, if there's a bacteria in your body, it can kind of run away from the white blood cell, and the white blood cell can chase down the bacteria. So that's something that happens. We can transform energy. So when the energy is, for any organism, energy needs to be used, and then that energy needs to be transformed into some other types of energy, right? So the cells will be able to need to do that. And then reproducing, in order to keep the cell alive and keep the genetic material passed down from generation to generation, reproduction needs to happen. So all those things are basic tasks that a unicellular organism would do. A multicellular organism will do every single one of these tasks, but there's one more task that a unicellular organism will not do. So what we have right here is called cell specialization. The cells of multicellular organisms become specialized for particular tasks and communicate with each other to maintain homeostasis. So if you think about your cells in your body, right, they all have special skills and they all look different. So for example, right here, these are cells in your lung, kind of, and you can, when you're sick, right, you can feel the mucus in your lung, and those little hair on the cell help push the mucus out of your body so you can stay healthy, right? This cell right here in your lung looks very different from your red blood cell, for example. Your red blood cell does not have all those hairs and it's not long like this. And if you look at this plant cell, for example, this is a pollen, I think. So this pollen looks very different from other types of plant cell. It doesn't need all these little wings to help the pollen fly away. So again, in your body as a multicellular organism, the one advantage that we have is that we can give specific cells specific tasks, right? So the cell has to specialize into a certain type of cell that has a specific task. And then we also need cells to communicate with one another. So for example, if you get a cut on your arm, right, your cells around the cut will start sending signals to each other and tell them that it's time to divide and make more cells so that we can fill up the gap. Also, let's say you get sick, your cells will send signals to each other to kind of locate an area of that your body is being invaded so that we can make more white blood cells, and the white blood cells can travel to the problematic area in order to keep you healthy, okay? So that's how multicellular organisms maintain homeostasis. It makes, we have all those cells, they're not all the same, otherwise we'll just be a giant blob. However, we have, the hair cell is different from the cells on your fingernails, the cells on your hand, the cells in your lung, in your throat, in your eyes, in your ears. All those cells are made to do specific tasks. So the next word that we want to talk about is cellular specialization, the process of an unspecialized cell, a cell that doesn't have a specific job yet. The process of this cell, called stem cell, being specialized, being made into a different type of cell that has a specific job in a specific shape. And then once the cell is specialized, so let's say your cells in the intestine, once the cells becomes intestinal cells, those cells cannot become muscle cells. Again, you can't have your intestine randomly making muscle cells. That doesn't work. However, if you think about a baby, right? We start with a fertilized egg. We all started with one cell. But that one cell growing up into an entire person requires a lot of cell specialization. The cells have to take on specific tasks. But the stem cell is kind of the origin point where before any cell has a job, the stem cell has all the potentials of becoming every single type of cell. So if you look right here, it says, the cells of the multicellular organisms are specialized with different cell types playing different roles. So cellular specialization is the process of stem cells becoming cells that actually has a specific type and roles. The next one is the levels of organization of a multicellular organism. For a multicellular organism, the smallest unit, remember the smallest unit of life is a cell, right? So when we talk about levels of organization, we can start from a cell and then what is the next level up? So we start with cells, those are the smallest unit. The next bigger unit is called a tissue. So a tissue is a group of similar cells that perform a particular functions. They all have the same function, right? So think about your tissues in your lung or your tissues in your heart or your muscle tissues. They all have a specific function, but you would not call the muscle cells in the heart cell the same tissue. And then the next step is with all those tissue, you can actually make an organ. So for example, your heart is an organ, your muscle is an organ, your lung is an organ, your liver is an organ, your brain is an organ. So all those tissues working together gives you the next level up is an organ. The next one is called an organ system. So you can have, let's say, your circulatory system where your blood gets sent from your heart to the rest of your body. So that's an organ system. You can have your urinary system where the water gets filtered out. It involves your liver and other organs to make this urinary system. So all those are organ systems. And then the last step is all the organ systems make up an entire organism. The last one that we want to talk about is cellular junctions and receptors. So remember earlier we said different cells need to communicate with each other so that they can send signals and keep your body organized, right? The part of your body gets invaded, we need to send all the white blood cells over there to fix the problems. So cellular junctions and receptors help cells kind of talk to each other. So it's responsible for cellular communication. So it helps organisms maintain homeostasis by connecting cells to their neighbors. So the junctions are kind of, if you have two cells next to each other, there are kind of holes in between, in the cell membrane, that allows the cells to send signals through the holes. So we'll look at a picture of that. And the receptors allow cells to kind of receive a signal from somewhere that's, farther away. So if you look at this picture right here, we have these two neighboring cells, but we have these gaps inside the cell membrane, as you can see right here, this junction. So from this one cell to the next cell, we can send chemical signals to allow certain responses from in the cell 1 if cell 2 were to give cell 1 a signal. Okay. The last one is called a cell receptor. So for example, between your neurons, there are receptors on neurons that can receive signals from another neuron. Okay, so if you can see right here, we have one neuron sending a signal to the next neuron to stimulate it. And so for example, if I were to touch something hot, that neuron in my hand, in my finger, is going to travel and then send signals to neurons in my arm and then eventually all the way to neurons in my brain, right? So that my brain will know that I'm touching something hot and I need to move my hand away. So those signals that are sent between cells that are not directly attached to each other, those are called cell receptors.